Hello and welcome in the thermofluid teams. Today we are going to discuss a basic terminology in the thermodynamics. So what are the basic terminology? Let us first start from the system. What is system? What is system? System is something in which we are going to focus or we are interested to do the study. It is the reason in which we are interested. So, for example, this is the reason in which, suppose water is filled in this region, suppose, and we are interested in this water, then this water will be our system. And apart from the system, everything will be surrounding. So this is your system, this will be your surrounding, and a thing which separate system from its surrounding is called boundary. It can be real or it can be imaginary also. It can be fixed, it can be flexible also. So boundary can be real, imaginary, can be fixed, can be flexible. Then we move to next terminology, which is a state. What is the state? State is something, the condition of your system at a given time. It is the condition of your system at a given time. It can be defined by a set of properties. State, what is state? It is the condition. So for example, the water filling in the tank. What is the pressure? What is the pressure of that water? What is the temperature of the water? What is the volume of the water? All these things are called properties. All these things are called properties, and through that properties we can define the state of that system. So I hope it is clear what is the state of the system. Let's coming back to the properties. Properties are also divided in two parts. First one is the intensive property, and second one is the extensive property. So what is the intensive property? What is intensive property? Intensive property which doesn't depend on the mass, does not depend on mass. For example, pressure is not dependent on the mass. Temperature is not dependent on the mass. What is extensive property? Extensive property depend on the mass. Extensive properties depend on the mass. How you can distinguish between the intensive and extensive property? There is a small trick. So if that is your system and here there is some pressure, temperature, volume, there is some enthalpy, internal energy, entropy, all these properties are inside of that system, and the trick is if you divide this same system in two parts, and if the property will divide in two parts also, then that property will be your extensive property. So for example, if there is a pressure P and you divide in two parts through the wall, then pressure will be same, Pp. Temperature is also will be same, but what happened to volume? Volume will change, V by 2, hence this will be your extensive property. Okay, so this is the property. Now we move to another terminology which is very important. It's called a process. Process is something, the change of the state of the system. So suppose the state of the system is at 1, where all the properties are defined, P1, T1, V1, and now the state of the system is at 2, the property is defined like P2, T2, V2, then the changing from 1 to 2 is called process. Process can be done through different paths. So for example, 1 to 2, this is one path, 1 to 2, this is another path, 1 to 2, this is another path. So always remember, properties are not depending on the path, it only depends on the state or the point. So always remember, properties are the point function. These are the point function. It does not depend on the path. Why? If you come from 1 to 2, or you come from 1 to 2 through this path or through this path, it doesn't matter. It will not change with changing of the paths. So it is important to note that the properties are the point function. There are some another type of quantities which are depending on the path, like heat and work. These are the quantity which are depending on the path, and that quantity we call it as a path function. Path function. What is path function? Path function, which is the quantity which depend on the path of that process. So we will discuss in detail what is heat and what is work, but for the sake of example, these are the quantities which depend on the path. So this is the process. Let us discuss in detail what is the process, what are the types of the process. Process can be two types: reversible process and irreversible process. What is the reversible process? Reversible process is something in which if you change the process in the reverse manner, the system and surrounding should come in its original condition. So what is the meaning? Suppose there is a process 1 to 2 like this, and if you change this from 2 to 1, the system as well as surrounding should come in its original condition. So how you can understand it? You can understand it with one basic example. Suppose there is a spring which is connected with a block, and suppose block is moving from 1 to 2 and then again come back to the 2 to 1, then what is happening? The system is coming in its original condition, but surrounding is not coming in its original condition. Why? Because due to the friction, there is some amount of heat will release, and it will release to the surrounding, and surrounding gets heated up. So this is the very important condition. The system and surrounding should come in its original condition, then only we can say the process is reversible. Irreversible process, everything apart from the except reversible is irreversible process. Another term in the reversible process or similar to the reversible process is the quasi-static process. This is a form of, it is the approximation of, you can say, a reversible process, quasi-static process. So reversible process is the ideal, but quasi-static process is the practical. So it is the extremely slow process, which is nearly reversible process. We are saying it as quasi-static process. Okay, so that's it. These are the basic terminologies. Please share and subscribe our channel.